Welcome to Selling the Soundtrack, your go-to pod for everything music sync licensing. If you're already making bangers, your music could be making you bank. Today we're here with Heather Cook. She is legendary in the industry. She's been working in the music business for over 20 years. She owns her own company, Freedom Music Group, which is a sync rep company, and she's also worked in the sync departments at peermusic and Eternal Music. She has her own book called Music for Marketing and Brands, which is available for purchase on her website. She has big placements ranging from Apple to Target to Nike and so much more. She's also a singer, a songwriter. She's a director for documentaries. She's a mom. She's a wife. She likes to keep herself busy. Thanks so much for being here, Heather.
Thank you for having me.
Before we start, I want to take a moment to give a shout out to our sponsor, Mogul. Mogul is your personal royalty department. You can connect your PRO like ASCAP or SOCAN. You can also connect your distribution company like DistroKid or TuneCore and all of your other royalty collecting companies, and then that way in one platform you can see all of your income streams. Also, Mogul identifies discrepancies and gives you actionable insights so that you get all the money that you deserve. You can sign up at www.usemogul.com and you can use code STS1 for 20% off. Heather, please share your journey with us.
Oh boy, that's a big question.
I know, I want to hear all of it.
So I'll just start at the beginning. I started writing and creating music when I was like 8 and 9 years old. And so I started playing, violin was my first instrument, and I played in an orchestra as a kid. I also played cello, and that was one of the first times that I was like, oh man, I really love music. I want to create music. And we had a piano in the house, and I would tinker on it and I would figure out melodies and stuff, but we couldn't afford to pay for piano lessons. So it was one instrument I wanted to learn. I finally have learned it recently.
Oh, really?
So I have guitar, piano, and I haven't played violin and cello in a while, but so from a very young age, I just was like, loved music. I sang in a gospel choir in high school. At a young age, I aspired to be an artist, like a lot of young folks. And at that time, it was a long time ago. It was before social media was a big thing. MySpace came out a few years after I was starting to try to be in the music space. And I grew up in Newburyport, Massachusetts, and I had moved to Boston, and I was studying at a tiny little music school called the Voice Studio. And I had a producer, and kind of a shady guy in the business, not the best experience, but an experience. And he was working with guys like Denny Diaz from Steely Dan, and Denny was interested in my songs and cutting them on Artist, and Dinky Dawson, who was a road warrior with Fleetwood Mac and the Byrds back in the day, and he was a sound engineer for Live Sound. And so he was in the studio with my old producer, and they were helping me figure out who I was as an artist, and I never could figure that out. So in my early 20s, I was really like banging my head against the wall for a long time and just trying to figure out where, what's my sound, what should I do? And then I heard about Belmont University down here in Nashville. And so I got in there, and I was older when I got into Belmont, so I was like the big sister at school. So a lot of my classmates would ask me to help them manage their projects, or an album release, or help them set up a show. And so I had office experience because I had a day job. I had to pay the bills. So I was working as a bookkeeper and going to open mic nights, and, saving as much money as I could for music lessons and studio time and just doing what I could. And so, I finished my undergrad in music business at Belmont. And when I was a senior there, by that time, I was married with a 1-year-old. And so I was graduating. I had started my first company, which was called Cooking Up Music, music publishing and artist management. And so I ran that for 3 years. And I had a number of great, talented artists I got to work with, like Big Benny and Emily Reed and Simone Simonton, and they were all doing really great things on their own. And I was just trying to help elevate that and pitch songs. And at the time, I was pitching to country artists on the row. And Rich Redmond, who plays for Jason Aldean, he was a friend of mine through my friend Cindy Kaza. And he was like, you know, when you start your company, you can pitch songs to me. And he was one of the first people that gave me kind of that indoor to pitching to people in the business, as well as a couple of other folks. So there were a lot of people that were super supportive and helpful. And, you know, having that education at Belmont was huge because you do an internship and you're in the door. Like that, I had every internship I did, they were like, internship is the way in, really. I mean, if you're going to be on the business side, you have to have that hands-on experience, and the only way to get it is through an internship. And so I went from there, and I'd started my company, and I was also serving as, I was volunteering for the Association of Independent Music Publishers, AIMP, Nashville, which was very new at the time here in Nashville. So they had branches in New York and LA. And so I got to help be a part of setting up AIMP when it got started here. And the woman who was the executive administrator left, and she's like, you need to take my position. And so I added that on to what I was doing at my company. And so I was sitting at the boardroom at the table with all of the major indie publishers in Nashville and helping facilitate, I was putting on parties, basically. I was hosting panels, and hosting events for the music publishing world. And the executive of that board was Kevin Lamb, and he was the president of Peermusic at the time. And we were hosting an event one night. We were at ASCAP, actually, and he was like, if you didn't own your own company, I would hire you. I have a position open. And so I was like, well, as a matter of fact, my company is kind of schisming. I had a number of artists who were going in different directions. And one was moving to Canada. One was not sure if she wanted to do the writing thing anymore. She wanted to get back on the road and drum. And I was like, I get it. You know, like everybody was kind of going in the different direction. And so it was really perfect timing when Peermusic came along. And so I was able to bring some of my artists with me. And so I closed down shop with my company. And I said, listen, guys, I'm going to Peermusic. And so they hired me. At the time, I was creative manager in the sync ad department. And so that was back in 2013. So by this time now, I had started to get into the sync world when I was running my company. I had one particular artist I managed, Emily Reed, who's really talented. She's still out there crushing it and doing her own thing, and she's amazing. Go look her up. But she and I was managing her, helping her with her first project, which was more an indie alt kind of folk thing. And it was perfect for the sync space. And so I had actually invested about $5,000 of my own money to host a showcase at the Nashville Film Festival. And I had her, and then I had 3 other bands playing. I think I can't remember what venue we were at downtown. I don't think the venue's here anymore. But great venue. I had a bunch of sponsors. I had Whole Foods sponsoring. And so they put the food spread out, and I had other people sponsoring to be a part of it. And she blew away the music supervisors who were there. And one in particular, Stephen Vincent, who is the head of music for Disney, came up to me and he said, I love Emily. Would she like to write for Disney? And it was one of those moments where I was like, oh my God, everything just changed. What?
This is my break it moment.
This is it. I'm like, this is it. And it was like, this was like that moment. And I brought Emily over and I was like, this is Steven. She didn't know what was going on. I'm like, Steven is interested in you writing some music for Disney. And she was just like, what? Like, what's happening? Like, oh my gosh, okay. And at the moment, I told him, I said, we're going to be in LA. I'd love to come stop by. We didn't have a trip planned for LA. I was just like, I'm going to make a trip. So I said, when we're in LA, we should come stop by. And so we did. Emily and I like booked a ticket almost immediately and had a couple of her bandmates come to LA. And we went to the Disney offices, which was amazing. And she sang a few songs in the conference room. And he's like, yeah, of course, you're great. Like I said, I'd like to write for Disney. And so she ended up writing with one of his writers. And that particular song she wrote is called 2 in a Million. And it took a couple years to place. but it was in the season finale for Austin and Ally. So it ended up landing. It just took a while.
Right.
But it was still like, wow, this was such a huge opportunity.
100%.
At the time, the timing was interesting. So it was leading up to when she was getting ready to move to Canada. And I was like, I can't manage you from Canada. Like, I live here in Nashville. I don't know that market. Like, it might be best if we go in a different direction. And it was a really hard decision because we just had this thing happen. But it was one of those things that, like, it's sit and wait, too. So you have to just, like, okay, well, where do I place my energy and what's going to help both of us right now? And so we shifted our relationship to where I was repping her at Peer for a period of time.
Okay.
And so that thing happened with Steven, and then I went right to Peer. So, everything happens for a reason, like if I had stayed, I wouldn't have learned everything I learned at Peer. So I went on to Peer, and then I started landing I landed stuff on my own. But then I was supporting, my boss there is Craig Courier, and Craig's been doing this for 30 years. He's been in the sync bit. He's the OG of sync advertising. Like, I'm just like, I learned everything I know from him, truly. Like, everything I'm able to do today is because of him and the experience that I had at peermusic. Like, being on the sync team, peermusic's a global independent music publisher. They've been around for almost 100 years now. They have 36 offices worldwide. They have millions of copyrights, just amazing. And while I was there, I got to oversee the sync rep program. And worldwide, we had about 200 something artists on in that program. And the idea was to sign them to a sync representation deal and then push them into a publishing deal once they were landing placements. And we had a number of artists that we did that with. Craig initially did that with a band called Family of the Year. And they landed their song Hero in the movie Boyhood, which was huge. And so I got to be a part of working with some wildly talented, some of the most successful sync people in the business. Some of the names that you hear regularly, I got to be behind the scenes and working with them. So just learning so much in that time. And so while I was there, kind of like at the end, like the last couple of years, because I was there for 10 years, almost 10 years, like 9 years and 8 months or something. And one of my writers started pulling me out of the writer closet, Jasmine Ash. And she was like, you need to write again. You need to sing again. Like, don't put this away anymore. Because the advice I was given back when I started my first business was, if you're on the business side, you're not a musician anymore. Put that away. You don't talk about it. You don't tell anybody. Like, you just... And really, like, at the time, I didn't have much to speak for. I was like, well, there's nothing anyways, so yeah, I'm fine with that. Like, I had never figured my sound out back then, so there was nothing to really hold on to, honestly. And so at the time when that happened, Jasmine and I started writing together. There was something welling inside that was there, and I had tons of songs that I was, like, writing, and melodies I was coming up with, and she helped me kind of hone it in a bit, and just, like, okay, well, let's package it like this. And then the pandemic hit, and the world fell apart. And then I have degenerative disc disease in my spine and stenosis, and I've dealt with chronic physical pain, back pain, for about 15 years. So most of my career, I've dealt with physical pain and battling against that. And so it's limited me. And so Peer was there for me in that time where I had a really great position in the industry. It made it easy for me to go home at night to be with my family and my kids, my husband. It made it easy for me to take care of myself physically, as far as, like, dealing with things that would happen, because I had 3 surgeries. And so the last one I had was just after COVID, maybe a year after COVID, and I had my L4 and L5 completely ruptured. And I was in a wheelchair for 2 months. I was bedridden for 2 months, almost 3 months. I couldn't walk. It was so painful. And I had my L4 and L5 completely replaced. I had artificial disc replacement, which is pioneering surgery.
Yeah.
Dr. Blumenthal was my doctor in Texas. I have to give him a shout out because he transformed my life, truly. Like, the pain that I was in was so debilitating. And then when I wasn't in that pain anymore, it was like the floodgates were freaking open. And I was like, watch out, Kitty, bar the door. I couldn't stop writing. I couldn't oh my God, I got to do more. Like, I had so much energy.
Your threshold's just so much higher.
It just went whoom, like through the roof. Yeah. And so I wrote over 100 songs. A bunch of them I still need to record. Like, their ideas are ready to go and finish. Mm-hmm. Others have been recorded and released. Others have been recorded by me for my project. Mm-hmm. So I have my artist project is Brewster Bee. Mm-hmm. I'm a rock artist. I'm like a female Imagine Dragons. Mm-hmm. And
I love your stuff on Spotify.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. When that happened, where I was at Peer, I'm like wanting to write again. That wasn't my purpose at Peer, and that space wasn't meant for me to thrive in that way. And so I needed to move on to be able to experience that. Mm-hmm. And I was there for 10 years. That's a
good chunk of your life. You
huge part of my life. Yeah. I did my thing there. I did my thing.
Yeah.
And then I went on to a company called Eternal Music Group, run by 3 trailer music supervisors who I love: Maura Duval Griffin, Todrick Spalding, and Nita Shrina.
Shout out.
Oh, shout out. I love them. They're the most talented trailer producers in the business. And and their model was music library, which is really different. Is a different kind of business philosophy. And so they needed me to help with producing albums for their library, which I got to do, which was fun because I get to strut my stuff as an executive producer. Totally. I just got my certificate in music production from Berklee. I'm like, all right, I'm going to strut what I've learned, test things out here. And so I had 5 albums I finished. I had another 4 in the can that were going to be finished by the time I left. I spent a year there. And again, it was a great experience. The coolest thing with them was when I interviewed with them, I was like, hey, I want to do my music again. And like, I want to produce and write. And they were like, go for it. We'll help you release it. Like, I say, like, Peer Music were my teachers, Eternal Music were my champions, and they both gave me those wings to fly to do what I'm doing now.
Right.
Like, I needed both of them. I needed all of the experience I had with them to help me get to this place today. And I just such gratitude to both of those experiences. So and again, it was like time to go, time to fly. And I had artists asking me to rep them, and I have for years. Like, I mean, even when I was at Peer, people were like, can you just sync rep me? I'm like, well, I work for Peer. I can rep you at Peer. Right. And at Eternal, signing them to writer deals there. And so it made sense for me to go out when I did. That kind of writing was on the wall. And, so by this time I'd released my first single, Supernatural. Yeah. And recorded that with this incredible producer, Elia X.
She's awesome.
She's amazing. You guys got to check her out. Like, she was the first person I went to, because I've worked with a lot of producers, and I've been like, I'm trying to figure out my sound. Right. And she was like, you're a rock artist. She's like, I have a track for you. I'm like, oh my God, what did I think about this? Like, I'd never considered that. Yeah. And
where were you leaning before? Like, what were the options for you?
I was like singer-songwriter folk thing.
Interesting.
Because I'm like, well, I guess I could do that. I have a really gritty, you can hear it in the way I talk too. I have kind of a gritty, hard time, kind of
like, it makes sense for rock.
Voice. It makes sense for rock. Yeah. And so that track was fire. I was just like, this is awesome. And it was the first time we met, I went in the studio with her, and she had the track. I recorded the hook, and I was like, I have a hip hop artist I know that I want to get on this. It would be amazing. Julissa. Julissa, again, another artist, writer, producer. Like, she is rapper, killing it. And she's like built her social media up. She has like 150,000 Instagram followers.
So she's so good at social media.
Oh, she's so good at it.
So good.
Yeah. Our indie artists go follow Julissa to see what she's doing, because she's really good at what she does. But we came up, we had this song, and I'm like, whoa. And then I sent it to a music supervisor for sports specifically, and he's a music supervisor for sports, but also music marketer. And so you're hiring him on retainer, and his name is John Adams. He's at the Score. He's a huge huge supporter of my music and me as an artist. And when I sent him this song, he was like, "Oh my God, this is so good."
Oh,
and so,
that's so nice.
So my first and my second single is Heading for the Top, which I co-wrote with producer Femka. So it was really important to me to find women producers. I want to work with as many women producers as I can.
Totally. It's a different vibe also working with other women.
It really is. And just having that right communication that we like get each other in a way that is authentic and very real and comfortable and safe. Safe.
Yeah.
Femka helped me with Heading for the Top. And those two singles, my first two singles, have thousands of streams now. They've been playlisted 130 times. They're playing in 20 sports arenas.
What? Congrats.
They, Athletes Unlimited was licensed it in their entire basketball season. They made it there. They use it in all their promos. It was their song of the season. Orlando Pride Women's Pro Soccer Team has licensed it. I have other folks interested. So I have 2 songs out, and I've already done all of this. I'm like, why didn't I do this sooner?
You should have,
But timing's everything. It was the right time to do it.
Right.
And so my next single is coming out at the end of this month on the 30th. Future is Here.
Cool.
Is what that's called. And that one I co-wrote it, and it was produced by Steve Vito, excuse me.
I love Steve.
Steve Vito is another talented guy. I just got to hang out with him in Connecticut when I was driving through. So now I've got like all my music going, and my company's Freedom Music I started in December. And so I've just been going like gangbusters. And it was funny, like when I got started, I'm like, gosh, I wonder if people will sign with me. Like, I hope it's going to be okay. Like, I hope it'll work.
People are so stoked to work with you. What are you talking about?
I know. Is that built in, like, I'm not good enough. I don't know if I know what I'm doing. Like, it's so human, and it's so much a part of, for creatives. Like, we're so hard on ourselves. And so I have signed over 100 writers and producers and artists. I have a number of publishers and labels I work with, a handful. Rensong Music Publishing, which is really a cool situation. So I was interning for Rensong when I was a student at Belmont.
Okay.
Years and years ago.
Full circle moment.
Full circle, yeah. And so I also now, I did a camp with them a few months ago, and Ree Geyer, who runs that company, amazing woman in the industry here in Nashville. She's one of the best publishers in town, in my opinion, because she's just such a song person. And she's the president of AIMP. She's on the board for ASCAP. And so I did a camp for them, and I was sharing some of my songs. Like I was like, yeah, I'm writing again here, very transparent and telling people. And she said, well, I just need you to write with all my artists on our roster. I was like, what? Is this real? Okay. So so I've been writing. So aside from my own project, I write with a number of other artists. So Michaela Lynn, who's one of the Rensong artists, Charles Eston, who is also an actor. He's a wildly talented country artist, singer-songwriter. He was in the TV show Nashville, Deacon. He was that character. He was also in that show, Whose Line Is It Anyways? And he's a lead character in Outer Banks, which is a hit show on Netflix right now.
Wow, cool.
So, so I got to write a song with him the other day, and I was just like, freaking pinch me, like, what is happening right now? I can't even believe what's going on.
That's so fun.
So, so it's been super fun, and just continuing to build and grow, and we just had our sync camp last week, which you got to come to, which was so
amazing.
much fun.
I've never worked so hard and so quickly. Like the bar is set now at a new level.
Good. See, that's what I wanted. I wanted to make sure that that I'm providing as much information that can arm you with the tools to help you be better and write better, because we're always growing, and we're always getting better. And then I wanted to have some really interesting collaborations that you wouldn't have thought of normally, but maybe just like, okay, let's see how this goes. And so that was great to see that happen, and then the connection and the collaboration. And like, I am just a believer in, like, it's not about making connections, it's about being a connector. It's being a
Yes.
conduit to like helping people connect and make and create something or inspire something or
Yeah.
make something happen and not expect something from that. Just
The-
make that connection.
Totally. And the roster's really cool. Maybe it's because of the kind of person you are, but like every single person was so friendly. Like I enjoyed the hang as much as I did making the music.
That's so important because I'm a big believer too. Like I want to work with people I love, that I enjoy working with, who are easy to work with.
Yeah.
Because in this business, in the sync world in general, but like in the music industry and in any business, you want to work with people who are easy to work with in terms of, you know, if something gets difficult, it's not an argument, it's a conversation.
Yes. You're on the same team.
You're on the same team. We're all working together. Nobody's competing against each other. You know, I have artists that I write with or they write with me for my project. And there's no battle. There's no competition.
Right.
It's just like we're here to be creative and help each other.
Yes.
And, you know, that's awesome. I love that. And so I come from that place. And then I think we just attract what we want.
I know you work with a broad range of genres.
Yes.
And you, in your own personal music, do like rock, alt rock, a little poppy.
Yeah, a little poppy.
But what would you say like your favorite genres are, and do you think there are certain genres that are more sellable than others?
Oh, interesting. Okay. I like soul music a lot. I love Motown, Diana Ross, and I love like Sister Rosetta Tharpe, like older music. I love a lot of genres, but like I love classical for its own purpose and meaning, and when I'm feeling in that mood, and because I used to love playing classical music,
right? Because of the orchestral background, yes.
Yeah. I mean, and growing up, I listened to a wide range of genres. I was listening to Bette Midler when I was a girl, and then I was listening to Method Man and, you know, Wu-Tang Clan and The Roots and Lauryn Hill's Miseducation of Lauryn Hill album was like mind blowing to me when I first when it came out.
Yeah.
And
broad range,
huge range,
right.
yeah, like all over the map. And then you know, I mean, so the music that works best for sync, there's three main genres that are the most popular: rock, pop, and hip hop.
Okay. And
those three are also the top of the charts. So those are three of the most popular at the top of the charts. So an interesting thing is that country music is actually a really popular genre,
right?
But it's one that's misunderstood by advertising, and it's one that is hard to place because they're such great lyricists in the country market, and they tell the story in such a meaningful, deep way that it paints the story that can conflict with a scene.
It's too specific.
And that's partly where at Rensang I've been writing with the writers there to help paint them a little bit over here to the sync space, like speak in your authentic voice, but paint it over this way a little bit, so it can fit in my world. So yeah, I mean, you know, I did for my master thesis for Berklee, I built a database and I basically researched all these ads. And what I found was those were the main genres that were the most popular. And then there's little ancillary ones. And what's happening now too, and this is again driven by the charts and what people are really listening to. Latin music is getting in.
I heard that, yeah.
In a big way. And that's which I love. I think that's incredible.
It's so fun.
It's such fun music.
It is such fun music.
It's such fun music. But again, it's another space that's misunderstood because ad agencies or music supervisors in that space, not so much the music supervisor. Music supervisors are more, they understand the nuances. It's their clients that don't always understand the nuances. So in Latin music, they'll just say, I just want a Latin song. Okay, what specifically do you mean? Do you need something flamenco? Do you need something that's Mexican regional? Like, what does that mean? And every bit of Latin music is different depending on the region. And I am not a specialist in that area. There are people who specialize in that and really know. So, yeah.
How would an artist go about wanting to work with you now at Freedom?
now I'm like, my roster's full. I can't do anymore. So we actually, so I do want to talk about my team a little bit too and tell you, because like that is a huge part of how I'm even able to build my roster the way I have.
Of course.
But folks do reach out to me either on social media or LinkedIn, or they just send me an email direct. And it's Heather at freedommusicgroup.co, .co, not .com. And so if people send music, I just say, please don't send me more than 3 songs. Please sending it in a streaming link, preferably disco.ac. Make sure you have instrumentals and your metadata's cleaned up and you've got pictures in there and all the things, and let me know a little bit about you, like a little tiny bio, and tell me that you heard me on this podcast specifically, because if it's somebody that you know, I'm more apt to listen rather than somebody I have no idea who they are. Although I'm always listening. I have Jason Lee is a director of Sync Creative and Film and TV, but he does all media, and he's based in Los Angeles. And Jason and I have actually worked together for over 10 years.
Wow.
So we worked together for 8 years at P.K.A. We worked together for a year at Eternal. And then we were both at each company. And I was like, and then he had left. So whenever the strikes were happening, Film and TV just like went away. So they had to like close that department. And then he was off doing his thing. And I was like, come hang out with me at Freedom. So he's crushing it. He's landed so many placements. And he's brought in some really cool artists and catalog. Mr. Big from the 80s. He brought that deal in, which is amazing. So he's a huge part of helping Freedom grow as fast as we've grown. A big part of that. I just brought on Lainey Shorner. She is in Paris. She speaks 3 languages, and she was my intern at Pure Music years ago. And then she always stayed in touch with me. And that was I always have interns. I always do. Like one, because I love to teach. And I love to pass on to others. Like I like to be of service and help others. And I always tell my interns, stay in touch. Like, let me know how you're doing. And so she always stayed in touch. And then she got she finished her degree at Berklee as well. And then she started her own sync thing in Valencia, Spain at first. And she has a relationship with supervisors there. And literally the first week she started working with us. She's like, I have 3 meetings with music supervisors this week. First week, hitting the ground running. So, that's exciting. And I have other folks. I have other people that are asking if they can help in different regions of the world to pitch the Freedom catalog, because we've grown so much. And so the other parts of the catalog we have are Music and Media is a company I represent. And they have a number of catalogs. They have a number of catalogs and songs they've been acquiring. So they have a fund that they've been able to acquire older catalogs. So we have songs like Werewolves of London, Mambo Italiano, People by Barbara Streisand, and the entire Funny Girl album, which is an incredible album of music. And People and Don't Rain on My Parade are 2 songs I'm trying to land in something really big. So brands, if you're listening right now, like, hint, hint. So the roster is quite big, and I really pride myself on having this. Like, I want to be able to sit with you guys and have a conversation and stay updated. I have a lot of folks who, in that number I mentioned, they're like on call, and they have others who are my top tier and are like, all right, these are the folks that
you're investing
day to day. They have a lot more going on. Some people only have a couple songs they've given me. So that's easy to manage. Like, okay, great, I'll pitch these for you, see what will happen. And then others who are creating every day. So I have one artist I manage, Tabitha Meeks, who's amazing. She's like a Nashville Nora Jones, classically trained pianist. She's got jazz experience, super talented. She just released a summer EP. She's got a fall EP coming out. She's got a Christmas EP coming out and an album coming out the 1st of 2025. So, like, she's prolific. And she's been landing placements. So she's got CSI Miami. She's got Hallmark Spot. She's got, like, all
Badass.
all these different TV shows,
Yeah.
and just continuing to grow. So she's the only artist I'm not taking on any more management. Like she's
Right.
the only one I'm managing.
Right.
And if I do manage anyone else, it's going to be within who I already have been working with for years. There's a couple people who've asked me, and I'm like, not just yet, maybe.
Because it's a lot of work.
It's a lot. It is, and
Yeah.
it's you really put all of your energy into helping. If it's an artist and a writer for sync, I'm not just taking the songs and just pitching them. I'm giving them mixed notes on their songs. I'm going through every track. I'm making sure every track that comes in is pitchable and something that we want to know or have a good feeling could license.
Yeah.
I'm going to guide them as far as like some of the details of who they are as an artist and how to build that out a bit. In a way, like, and I had this when I was at Peer with the rep program. I was I was like not a manager per se, but I did things managers would do to guide and help an artist. So there's a lot of energy that goes into that. As you know, like we've talked about stuff.
Yeah, it is time consuming. Like to do that for a whole bunch of people and like run the company, I can't imagine balancing everything.
So I have to be selective
Yeah.
in who I do work with and the time and energy I put in. And again, it comes back to the people who are easiest to work with, who flow easy, the folks that have figured out the notes I've given and like run with it and gone super fast. Some people are, work faster than others, and it doesn't mean they're better. It just means they work at a different pace. And so, so that with that, as we grow, we're growing at a smaller pace because I feel like we're at a good spot right now.
Just for the audience, like what's one of your favorite placements?
Well, a recent one that I was excited about was with a band called Don't Scare the Ghost. And this is a good example because it kind of surmises like all the things that I'll do with a band and an artist. Ben Epan and Chris Eyre, they had created this rock band, and I was at Eternal Music Group when we did this, and they were trying to figure out what they were going to do. And I said, well, I would encourage you guys to really come up with a name, come up with a look, and create an EP and have a body of work that we can pitch. And so, and this is what I did at Peer. We did this at Peer all the time with bands and artists. And there was a whole strategy behind like when you release it, how soon you release, if you release at all, all that. Should you wait for a placement? Should you not? And they released a couple singles, and it was almost instant. Like they got placements pretty quickly. So one of our team members in UK got a placement for them for a French water company, bottle of water company. So that was one. And then I landed them a Super Bowl promo, and that just came from like just servicing it to our clients, and it wasn't even a direct pitch. It was just like, here, you got to make sure you like play this and license it kind of thing. So that was special because that one was like, it just showed, okay, when you really do this in a meaningful way and put that time and energy into that artist and, make great music, because they make great music. Ben Epan is one of my favorite producers to work with, super talented guy. And Chris is a great songwriter and singer and artist. And so that was a really cool one. I'm trying to think of some others. One of the first, I guess was second or third or fourth place. I can't remember. But one of the first placements I had when I was at Peer was with a guy named Andrew Simple, and it was a K Jeweler spot, and it was like the first 6 months I was there, and I had gone. I can't remember where I was. So I would travel the country meeting with ad agencies. Okay. So I was frontline marketer.
I see.
And so I would go and I would host a lunch or breakfast with the ad agency. So I've got to present to all the major ad agencies in the United States.
Very cool.
Which was fun. Like, again, I'm like a people person, and my being an artist and being comfortable on stage, it helps.
Of course,
So I was like, put me in front of people. I love that place,
right, Right.
And so it was one of the first agencies I met with, and during the meeting, she handed me a brief, basically, and said, here, I've got this brief for K Jewelers. Okay. I sent her songs. I pitched songs for it. They quoted 3 of the songs, and then landed Andrew's song. And that went in the K Jeweler spot, and then they flew down to Nashville and they interviewed him at Ocean Way Studios, and like
Nice.
I think it was Ocean Way. Yeah, it was like amazing. And then he was flown down to Florida for an Ion Network interview in between by presented by K Jewelers, and their K Jewelers was sponsoring this particular Ion Network TV show, and so then they talked to him in between, and then it was at the lighting of the Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center. So I like felt like I really knocked it out of the park. One of the first placements I had at Peer. I think another one too is one of my favorites that some of these are like inadvertent lands. Like I had pitched it either directly to the client, or it came through a playlist pitch, or it came through, hey guys, make sure you listen to this. We need to land this song kind of thing. But I had landed Buddy Holly's Every Day in an IKEA commercial.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure that was a direct pitch that I submitted. And it was awesome. I was super excited because so Buddy Holly started his career at Peermusic.
Oh, wow.
And he actually met his wife Marie in the office in New York.
What?
Because she was a secretary there.
Yeah.
And then I had been working at Peer for like 5 years, and I loved to do ancestry. And I found out I'm related to Buddy Holly. He's like my seventh cousin or something.
What?
I'm like, what is
Music's
this?
in my blood.
Music's in my blood. But I just thought that was really a wild coincidence that I'm working at the company where a cousin of mine started his career, but like one of the coolest cousins, and like he's a rock legend, and now I'm in the rock genre as an artist too, and I'm like, this is really cool.
It's kind of like a natural segue.
It was a natural segue, but it also gave me that like kind of courage to be like, oh, I got this in my blood. All right, I'll do it. So yeah, a lot of cool placements.
What do you see musicians not doing that you're like, damn, if only they did this in sync?
They don't spend enough time marketing themselves. And there's so many ways you can do it now. And now that I've been able to do it myself, I'm like, there's a lot of things you can do and I've barely scratched the surface of it. Like Submit Hub's a good one. I distribute my music through Symphonic, which I love Symphonic music. Like their platform is fantastic, their background. And they actually landed my second single on an editorial playlist for Apple.
Oh, wow.
But knowing how to utilize your team and marketing your music in a meaningful, like don't just release your songs.
Right.
Like really try to spend at least some money, even if it's $50. Like you can save up a couple $100 to do something. And the little, like, I've probably, in my music alone, I've invested about $5,000 or so. Okay. And I'm just barely scratching the surface of what I could do. It helps the story. So I pitch the artist as much as I pitch the song.
Yeah.
And if there's no story, if there's no anything, like, I got nothing to tell you. And it doesn't mean that I won't land something. It just makes it harder for the brand of the client to grab on to see, like, who's this artist. And so, like, if you go to my website, brewsterbee.com, you'll see all my music, and you'll see press that I've got. You'll see my story. You'll see the songs I've released. My social media, I try to stay active on. And that's something I need to do a little bit more of because I've got a release coming up. So I've got some marketing things I'm going to do. It's the biggest thing. Like, and I just see it lacking. Yeah. And it's so easy. Like, it's easy in that, even if you do one post a week, like do something, talk to your fans, and really connect with your fans. Yeah. Because that comes through when a brand or client, a music supervisor is coming to look at who you are. The last thing you want to see them do is like, you have one picture and then, the artist name and a link to the website and nothing's happening. And they're like, oh, this is made for sync.
Oh, I see.
And they just turn away pretty quickly from it.
So that part has to be authentic too. Like, you need
all
to
of
be
it.
right.
Yep. The whole picture.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think people just want to focus on the music, it's like, oh, just let me make the music, but it all goes hand in hand, and like, I think it's just committing to all the pieces. Like, if you want to be in sync, like, it's multifaceted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even if you're a producer and you're not an artist, a producer can still tell their story.
Yeah.
There's some
Yeah.
great producers, like Austin Cannon has a great website you should go look at. Ayla Ray, her website's great. You go and you see their personality and you see the work they've done. And you're like, okay, I know what I'm getting when I work with this particular producer.
Right.
And so I can pitch them as a producer to a music supervisor and say, here's what you're getting with this producer. Femke's another one. When you go to her page, you can see like what she's done, and she's active on social media. She's also an artist as well, so she's promoting her stuff as well as the artist that she produces. But you can see, and then so for myself and for a music supervisor, you categorize everything. Everything kind of goes in a bucket of like, all right, this is in the bucket of that type of music that I know I'm going to need at some point. I can come back to it later because I remember for this reason. And so anything you can do that helps put you in a place where music supervisors you're standing out and I know them for that.
Right.
Like for Tabitha Meeks, she has a really cool retro pop sound.
Yeah.
And they know to come to her for that.
Right.
And they know they're going to get a really talented piano player playing and beautiful, delicate voice and all the different styles of music that she does. They know what they're coming for. And my music is like rock. And they know it's like sports-driven rock stuff. They know they're going to get that. So anything you can do to be distinctive and then put a little pretty bow on it and package it up so that when you hand it to somebody like me, I'm going to pitch it. I'm like, all right, great. I know what I'm pitching.
Right.
I'm not pulling it together to figure out, all right, there's this piece over here. She doesn't know what that is. So I don't know what we're going to do with that. And then this over, like, what is you as what is your brand as a producer? Like Tiff, you're like Tiffism. You're like an electronic producer, and you've got a cool EP coming out.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Excited about that.
Let's talk about your book that's coming out.
Well, I have my first edition is out. So Music for Media and Brands. I wrote a couple. It's an ebook. It's online. I actually do need to get it up on Amazon because I have a couple universities that are interested in using it in their curriculum. And I have a second edition coming out because just everything I learned being, over the last 2 years even, just so many more things I need to add into the book now that I didn't know before. And so that's coming out. And initially it started as a way of like communicating with ad agency folks because as I mentioned earlier, I was traveling around the country and I was meeting with ad agencies and talking to them about where I was working at the time, peermusic, but I was also teaching them. So there were so many of them that didn't understand how to license music or how to approach it. And frequently an ad agency will throw that job. If they don't have a music supervisor in-house, they'll throw it to the producers. And they'll say, you guys take care of the music. Sometimes it's the copywriter. Sometimes it's the creative director. It could be any number of people that handle music. Maybe it's everybody because it's a small agency. And so I found myself like saying the same thing over and over again. And so I just put it in writing. I was like, here you go, tied it up with a bow. And it was a really cool marketing tool at first too, because then it was like, here's a very simple, digestible, again, like nugget of information that can help you understand how this world works, Mr. Ad Agency person, and then help them to know who I was too. And so it's more directed towards them, but songwriters and artists can get a lot from it.
I got a lot from it.
Did you? Okay, good.
Yeah, especially like before I was connected to it, I think I bought the book first.
Oh yeah.
And
thank you.
Yeah, of course. No, it's helpful, and like it's such a different space, the commercial space. There's a lot more rules than like compared to like TV, for example. Like I've heard that with TV, it's easier to get placed if you're like a singer-songwriter making, your own like vulnerable, authentic tracks, while like with commercial, there's like some more rules. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, because you have an ad gets done in 30, 60, or 90 seconds, sometimes 15, now 7. I've got requests for 7 seconds.
Yeah.
And so you have to think about the tempo of the song and how quickly you're getting to the hook and how quickly you're grabbing their attention melodically. And so that all plays a big role in whether or not the song is going to place.
Right.
And so it has to move the scene along. Sometimes there's VO and it has to just be a track that can sit well in a scene, and there's a lot of voiceover VO. Sometimes the song carries the entire spot, and so it has to have the right lyrics to really carry the message and what the brand is trying to say to the consumer.
Right.
And so that's why I mentioned earlier they're asking for things that don't exist. They're asking specifically for a message that fits their brand's message for consumers for that specific product. And so, you know, they want people to come in and like feel safe. They want them either to have a good time and feel comfortable in a space like Target or family friendly in Target.
Right.
They want people to like come and communicate, like have community like at Starbucks. They want to connect through technology, through your phone. Like it's all about connection. And so all of those messages have to be delivered in a song in an authentic way, in a way the artist would say it.
It's a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I just try to like look at what's going on in advertising regularly and in film and TV now too, because I'm pitching for all of it, and really understand what they're looking for.
Are there any last tips you want to share with the viewers on just how to be successful in sync? I know I've talked to a lot of guests that say, because I've asked how do you be full-time in sync, and it's difficult. You have to really be releasing music constantly. A lot of people have side things, like they'll top line or do session work or produce for artists on the side. But yeah, just people who are scratching the surface of sync, do you have any tips for them?
Yeah, I mean, one thing is be great at your craft. So, be great, be a great musician, be a great vocalist, be a great writer, whichever your particular thing you're great at, be really great at it and keep working at it to become even better. And then collaborate with others.
Yeah.
Because that's the way that for myself even, and I've seen that for other artists, that's how I've been able to land placements, because I have a certain skill set and things I was able to do, but when I collaborated with my producers and co-writers, they brought a whole skill set to the table that I didn't have, and it took it through the freaking roof. And it was like, okay. So now that's helped me. It's like everybody pulls you up to where they're working.
Yeah.
And now you're able to accelerate even faster as a result.
Totally.
So co-write, collaborate, connect, learn as much as you can about this world. Amanda Craig Thomas wrote a really great book on Sync 101. I recommend reading that. There's another older book about sync. It's kind of an older one I won't mention. I don't know if I should mention it anymore. It's kind of like 10 years older, so it's it's really outdated. But watch podcasts, watch all the things, and do everything you can, be the best you can, but collaboration, I think, is a huge part of that.
And also just having someone to bounce your ideas off of, because you know how you can get into your own head sometimes, and by the time you finish a song, you're like, is this even a good song anymore?
Right.
But when you're collaborating with other people that you trust their ears, it's like, okay, well, they think it's good, so it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
For people that are aspiring to do this full time, is there a certain number of songs that they should aim to make per month or per year?
So some of those guys I mentioned earlier, those hugely successful guys, they were writing pretty much a song every day. That's at least crazy. 1 and sometimes 2 songs a day.
Wow.
And they take a break on the weekend, maybe, but it's breakneck speed at which people are creating. But really, it's okay also to go at your own pace. Create great music. Just really create great music. And yes, the volume has to be up there. 100 songs a year is a good goal to try to hit. Okay. And every song you write, you're going to keep getting better. And so, I would just say, look at what your pace is for writing, and then set goals for yourself and set small goals. Like, all right, this week I'm going to work on at least 2 songs, or 1 a week, whatever that is for you.
Yeah.
Because like I said earlier, everybody works at a different pace. Creativity doesn't have like a stamped, you need to do this specific thing, like there's nothing, whatever works for you.
Totally.
But do know that they're like what you're competing against in this market.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that you can't get those placements too.
Okay. And it goes back to like the whole 10,000 hours thing. It's just good to make more music,
Oh, totally.
And like creativity, I was saying this on another episode, but like it's not like you run out of creativity. The more you make, the better and more creative you become.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And where can people find you and your company?
Yeah, so it's freedommusicgroup.co is my company. You can find my whole sphere of everything I do is heatherdcook.com, brewsterbee.com. So,
and you have Instagram?
On Instagram, I'm on Instagram all over the place, LinkedIn, all of that. Yeah, and then we just started, there's a coalition of us, I should mention, I need to make sure I mention, is called Nashville in Sync.
Yep.
And super excited about that. We're a nonprofit 501c3. We're formerly of the Nashville Film Festival Music Board. Again, just made sense to go in a new direction, and our events were growing so much, we kind of had to make it its own thing. And so we're going to continue to do sync panels and events like we did at the film festival.
Cool.
My whole board is all the sync executives here in Nashville, a good number of the sync executives here in Nashville. So our membership is open for application, and we have some opportunity to apply to be on the board and be co-chair to board members. So there's a lot of opportunity there. But again, just to build community, build opportunity, educate folks. It's all about education. Again, like just helping our community, both the executives, sync executives in the industry, and the artists and songwriters in the business as well.
And don't forget to follow Selling the Soundtrack on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Thanks, guys. Peace.
Thank you.